What is up, UIG? Welcome back to the audio experience. This is Reed Daniels, and today, class is back in session. We're going to learn how to learn. So, why is this such an important podcast to be listening to? When you dip your toes into the DeFi waters or the crypto waters, or really anything new with a lot to learn, it can be really overwhelming, and it can be enough of a disincentive that it actually puts people off from returning and persevering through that difficult time when everything is new and your head is spinning a little bit. So I've got 3 really easy to understand actions that will enhance your ability to remember content long term. So the crux of this is we need to turn learning from a passive pursuit into an active pursuit. That doesn't mean we have to do push-ups while we learn, but what that means is we need to go from sitting and just passively consuming content to actively thinking, writing, and discussing content. The reason why we need to do that is because of something called Ebbinghaus's forgetting curve. And if you imagine a very simple graph with the vertical axis showing the amount of information retained and the horizontal axis showing the time elapsed since you've learned it. At the start of when you've learned something new, you have maximum retention and it rapidly drops off. It drops off to almost nothing after one exposure very, very quickly. So the way we combat that is by repeatedly thinking about the content that we've learned, by writing about it, and even by teaching other people that content. Because the more times we bring that content up or that information up from our memory and we think about it, the more often we do that, the more likely we are to encode that into our long-term memory. Once it's in our long-term memory, it's significantly harder to forget. So 3 ways we can do that. One is the Pomodoro method. The Pomodoro method is really dedicating 25 minutes of study uninterrupted and then giving yourself a 5-minute break to go and stretch your legs, get a drink of water, cuddle your pet, something enjoyable, but not scrolling on your phone and getting stuck in the Instagram death scroll. So the reason why this is successful is A, it gives you a little bit of a break. So you don't reach that mental fatigue or mental overwhelm so early in the journey. But secondly, it actually gives you a chance. So when you return back for your second 25-minute session, you spend the first 1 or 2 minutes actively reviewing the previously learned content. And by doing that, you're spiking that retrieval process. So you're bringing it back up in your memory, you're thinking about it multiple times. And the more times we bring up information from our memory into our what's called our working memory, the more likely we are to remember that long term. So Pomodoro method, 25 minutes on, 5-minute break, repeat that 3 more times, and then have a 20-minute break. 25 minutes on, 5 minutes break, repeat that 3 more times, and then a 20-minute break. Second technique is teach someone else. Now, both Colin and Maria have written content about this in our mindset section, which I highly recommend you go and check out. But if you teach someone else the content that you've been learning, you don't have to be an expert in that content. You can just teach one little takeaway lesson that you've realized. And the process of having to really think through your understanding and clearly articulate that will significantly improve your ability to remember that content long term. So Pomodoro method number 1, teach someone else number 2. If you have kids at home or a partner who isn't completely sick of hearing about DeFi yet, use those as a bit of a captive audience and give them a 30-second summary of what you've learned that day. They'll probably roll their eyes a little bit, but when they see the healthy DeFi yields that you've put that wisdom to use to, they'll probably listen to you a little bit longer. The final method is summarize what you've learned. And I'm going to give you a really clear-cut framework for how to summarize. It's called because, but, so. If you've been learning about a challenging topic, say impermanent loss, you're going to write 3 summary sentences. The sentence starts the same. Impermanent loss is important because. Second sentence, impermanent loss is important, but. Third sentence, impermanent loss is important, so. And then you finish those sentences. Impermanent loss is important because if you incur too much, it will impact your profit and loss. Impermanent loss is important, but it's not the same as profit and loss entirely. It's not the boogeyman in the DeFi space, so I don't need to be terrified of impermanent loss. Third sentence, impermanent loss is important, so I'm going to reduce the frequency with which I rebalance my positions by setting slightly wider ranges. That's all for me, guys. See you in the UIG. Happy learning.